Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. I've been really looking forward to the conversation with my guest today. And I think you're going to find this conversation to be really fun. He's has his hands in multiple different businesses. He's the author of the best-selling book, Top of Mind. He was recipient of the Ernst& Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award for the best emerging company. He was recognized as one of Business Journal's top 100 visionaries. He's been known as a top sales speaker. He writes columns for Forbes, for Inc. He's contributed to more than 50 online publications. But it's without further ado that I just bring my guest on right now. John Hall, my man, welcome to the show.
Thanks for being here, man. I was getting
Very,
embarrassed there. I was like, but thanks for the kind words. I certainly appreciate them.
you and I have known each other now for over a decade, I believe.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we were early YEC members, and you were, yeah, I remember meeting you there, and we've obviously, hopefully, evolved as people. Then, I mean, I was proud to catch up with you recently and see the health and the mental strength was at a very strong level. But when we first met each other, we might have thought we knew a lot of things, but we didn't back then.
Isn't that funny the way it works? So, I mean, even who we are today, when we look back at this conversation a decade from now, we're going to realize, man, I thought we knew so much during that podcast, but God, we barely knew anything compared to what we know now. Isn't that so funny?
Once you're willing to learn and be more self-aware, the learning is so much quicker. It just goes quicker and quicker, and you are able to learn more because you're willing, you're open, you have a better network with people who can be transparent with you. And so, yeah, I mean, I look forward to talking in 10 years, and I hope we keep evolving faster and better.
For sure. Somebody once asked me, when are you no longer considered an expert? So I'm curious, what would your answer be if somebody asked you that question? When would you no longer be considered an expert?
Dang, that's a tough answer because, like, I think that you can always learn. Even in my area, there's things that I don't know that there was actually one this morning where we were working with a client where they would definitely consider me an expert in the space of like organic growth marketing and basically thought leadership, PR, SEO, a lot of those things. And I would say like similar too, but there's some things with this specific one I just couldn't figure out, and I had to actually reach out to someone else and a couple members of my team. I'm like, you got to look at this. So I think that being a true expert is about knowing your limits and also be willing to admit. So, like to me, I like a very resourceful person rather than an expert. Well, like because those are
Nice.
the people that can be the most helpful. Some of the smartest experts evolve into the most resourceful in their industry, and those are the people that I tend to gravitate towards because they're the ones that will be the most helpful, get you the best solutions, and ultimately solve the problems that you're trying to solve.
That's an awesome answer. My answer, I think, was a little more simple. I might actually like your answer better.
You can
My
take it. You can legitimately just turn it around and just as a friend, you can take it.
My answer was you're no longer an expert when you stop learning because the world just continues moving and evolving and
Mhm.
changing at such a rapid race. Something
That's a good answer too.
that you did say something though about the experts not needing to have all the answers. I think if anything, what this is going to sound to like really odd for the people that don't have context, but you and I we spoke a lot about AI and all these different things. I said to my kids, you don't need to know the answers anymore. And they looked at me like, wait, what? I said the advantage for the people today moving into the future are going to be the people that know what questions to ask. You don't need to know the answers because you can find the answers, but you need to know the questions. And if you spent any time, and this is more speaking to the audience, because I know you know this, John, but for the audience, if you spent any time on AI, you know the importance of asking the great questions. That's where the advantage goes. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's like the prompts and understanding how AI can be used is not about knowing how to use it's about the thoughtful, like it's crazy the prompts that some people will come up with in that specific area where I'm just like, it's wild. There was one, oh gosh, it was recent. I want to give him credit if I come up with the name, but he was creating a prompt where he says like, hey, what is the answer here? Take this into consideration, this piece of content, this, and he did what I would consider a great prompt. Then he said, "Now I want you to reevaluate your answer and make certain that it is based on this, and this tone. And then it goes, once you get that, I want you to reevaluate and looking at it and make sure you like, and it was like, I've never even thought about a prompt and like asking an AI to reevaluate their decision. I forgot his exact prompt language, but he goes, it got increasingly better and closer because then the AI was hyper focused on this one thing to influence the current answer rather than the spread. And I was like, the idea that I think it's a similar thing. Like if you read, I forgot which chapter I wrote it in, but I call it value journalism. For example, we're in Columbia, Missouri, where one of the top J schools in the country is, and so I'm surrounded by really, really, solid like journalistic kind of environments, and they ask some of the best questions, and their intelligence shows through their curiosity and willingness to learn. And that is just wild. And so I applied listening to friends there into content. And content, I was like in the book, I talk about if you want to be top of mind, you got to be a value journalist with the people that matter the most. And what that means is that don't just ask, like, what do you want as a customer? Why do you want it that way? What could make this better for you? There's like a group of 10, 12 questions, which that's what journalism is. It's really digging into the core because a lot of times we don't know the best solution or we don't know the best resource. And a lot of times a nuance can change the advice that you get. Or, and that's where just now the next one is evolving this to AI is that value journalism and AI is even more important because one or two nuances is when you're evolving AI crawlers and things like that, or or machine learning and all that is the questions. And so I think value journalism is more important now, where you're asking the right question, the right prompts, and you'll get the best answers. And that's what will differentiate when a human is using AI in their products and services.
It's funny because we started this conversation talking about learning and knowledge and everything, but in order to know the right questions, you have to have the context and the experience to know the questions to ask. So they as you get answers, it only helps to refine your ability to ask better questions and it just continues to stack. But let's move on to value journalism and relevance and all that other fun stuff. You were still big into thought leadership 10 years ago.
Yep.
Now, quite a bit has changed because the internet and social media and whatnot really just continued to grow. So let's just say 5 years. Where do you think thought leadership is going and what has to change today to remain relevant?
Yeah, and actually, when you look at my history, I tend to follow value as an entrepreneur. I think that I was taught at a young age that, and actually, there's a great company we were just actually looking to invest in called Gravy Stack, which I want to give it a shout out because it teaches kids how to identify value at young ages. And what I mean by that is like what truly is valuable that you can earn something rather than a sense of entitlement. It's like, I want to provide values and be rewarded for that value. And I was taught that at a very young age. So my entrepreneurial journey, like even in third grade, I started a lunch broker system because certain kids, their mom would pack them certain things in their lunch, and then all of a sudden they wouldn't want that, but I could barter it, make a spread on it. And then when we were in college, I had a business model around real estate where I did student housing. I would meet people at bars or student organizations, find out what they wanted and what was valuable. Then I would go find that, pre-lease it, then get the bank to sign off it as a 19-year-old and 18-year-old. Then I followed the value when we created Influence, my first company kind of in this area that we're going to talk about. It was it was basically because Kelsey, Brent, the founders of that company, we wanted to break down trust barriers with people because I was having trouble in real estate because I was so young doing bigger deals. Kelsey was like doing an ad agency. Brent was doing investments. And we were like, man, we really need to get over this hump. And so that's where the idea of thought leadership, we didn't know really what thought leadership was at the time. We just knew if somebody trusted your expertise, they would be more likely to deal with you, whether you were a young, woman or a young investor. So we ended up starting that company based on that premise. And we got very strong at byline content. And we were the largest producer, to my knowledge, of that type of content until I sold that in 2018. Kel still stayed involved, but as we got out, I was starting to really struggle with the value of just byline content. Because the reason why is because that was great for a certain amount of time. However, it only as we've evolved and had more technology tools, you have to overlap strategy. It's more of an integrated marketing and content alignment approach. You
Yeah.
can't just do bylines and have a disconnect with other
And
marketing and other
byline.
vehicles.
I
The
love
byline is an article that I wrote with my bio at the bottom, so it's coming
it.
from me. and it's a expertise article.
So
All
we're saying
right, so
bylines, so articles that you wrote with your bio, you're saying that's not enough.
yeah, it's become not enough because in reality, marketing, if you got to go, especially with data these days, you got to go to ROI driven strategies, and bylines are a part of it. But what we ended up doing is, I love Venn diagrams because it's a great way to overlap strategies that help each other. So if you put thought leadership, so let's put bylines in the bucket of thought leadership. Thought leadership is about being a true source for information, so people in the industry trust you with original thought, content curation, and they come to you as that trusted source to educate them in the industry. That is one circle. So that includes bylines, that includes PR content where people are mentioning you. You're on a listicle for being a top expert or a speaker. Anything that's highlighting the expertise and trust that this is a company that knows what they're doing. And so that was one area, but it was started to affect, and that's where authority comes in. Then you have your next one where a lot of times and you start creeping into PR and industry people talking about you. That's where credibility comes in. So influencer marketing,
Yeah.
PR starts creeping in that and highlighting it so the industry sees you as that. That's when credibility comes in. A lot of qualitative metrics are in those circles, but we need to work towards quantitative because when people put in a dollar and they see more than a dollar come out, they tend to get a little more excited and motivated about a strategy. So that's where SEO and growth and organic growth came in at the bottom. So I ended up partnering with a guy named John Rampton, and we acquired relevance and ended up combining that where you have your authority, you have your credibility, and then now you have your visibility and distribution and organic growth where you can set quantitative metrics. I'm in it. I have authority and trust. Other people are talking and drawing attention to that to cement that. And then we're getting a lot more people to see that with visibility. And now when AI discovery is starting to come in where SEO is, it's going to be almost a totally new experience over the next year. And so if you have this stuff down, it's likely that you're going to be in a good position where AI is rewarding you for it, and that's going to be kind of the evolution of search. So that's kind of the direction we're going.
Well, so let me try to summarize this, and then you could tell me if my summary is moving in the right direction or not. So thought leadership, I mean, omnipresence, kind of being everywhere. Of course, that part there is important, but just on the SEO component of it alone, if you just take that part of the conversation, Google has this EAT algorithm, which basically says that, earned media plays a part. Like you got to be credible. And for most SEO agencies, it's just a matter of let's buy a whole bunch of backlinks. So now you start earned media. Now you start earning, then there's the social component. You mentioned influencer marketing. There's that way of going viral, creating content that's going to be shared. Those are when you start earning a lot of credibility. You earn credibility when people are sharing stuff. You earn credibility when other people writing about you. How's that sound? Am I in
Yeah.
alignment? Is anything I say you disagree with?
Oh no, like I agree with everything you said. I think that I will correct on one thing, and this is just so to be transparent with the listeners, is that the pay for play is have become a very, very gray area. To me, the way to do it is to earn it. But there are a lot of sites that take money and like hide sponsorship. Like, and I just want to be transparent is that, when you come across those strategies, I would just say you can try things and occasionally, you know, things work when you do kind of pay per play and there's a gray area. When you're looking at those strategies that exist, the one thing that if you just hone in on is it's called EAT. It's called, and it says Google EAT, and it stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So if you focus on that, and Google doesn't, they don't in any way hide that that's a major part. So you might get some credit on some pay per play. Like let's say we're talking about, like since we're talking about AI, I'm an AI technology company. Let's just say I am. If I'm using AI to curate AI news, Google is not going to ding me because they're going to say that's great. You were curating news on your site from the industry and pulling in as a good resource, and that news wasn't going to change, unless you do add commentary there. And so like what we're doing a lot of times is saying, guys, like earn it, but then when there's a great chance to, systematize something using AI, or there's something where you can do where the pay per play, it's just more is like as long as there's reasonable disclosures and things like that. Like you just want to make sure that you stay in Google's graces. But I would say that yes, everything you said, and then we're evolving to kind of figure out. And right now we're at the forefront of figuring out how AI is affecting these things,
Sure.
and we're seeing some good results if you do it right.
What in AI and content creation? So there is. a lot of these marketing gurus and whatnot were pushing this idea that, hey, here's a prompt and you can get 200 articles written for you in one day. And
Mhm.
I would caution people against using that type of strategy. But
Yep.
I do believe that, and I want to give credit where credit's due. I just can't remember the origin of the source, but where somebody said authorship is actually dying. It's people become editors, not authors. And when you understand what that means, it's, let's come up with a headline and then you build it. And let's come up with sub headlines and you build it and you build it and you create content one step, then another step, then another step, then another step. You just don't enter one little prompt that says, write me an article on outbound marketing. And then boom, it's done. And you press publish and you think you're going to go ahead and, you know, win the war on traffic. It doesn't work that way. We're still expecting, and Google is still expecting a unique and fresh perspective. And that comes with the context that you're going to layer on top of it through a series of different prompts and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, you're smart for not living in this every day. I would say that yes, you are right. We're becoming more editorial over. I will say we do a lot of pillar strategies here. I don't know if you're familiar with that as much, but pillar is basically we want to own this. Like companies most of the time come to us because they're like, we want to own and be known for this
Yeah.
one specific area or these areas. The initial pillars on your site that have those, that's great to have authorship. Like, you know a lot of stuff, Charlie, and your byline should be on that piece, and it shouldn't be AI at all. AI shouldn't be touching those pieces because that's where the eat comes in. Like Google wants to see that experience, that authority, that the stuff that you've learned. It's like that's so valuable. And so I think that what didn't ever say you have to write everything from yourself. What they said is you need to be the best trusted resource for the consumer for the best user experience. They've
Yeah.
never said authorship is a must. You can actually be a little more thoughtful in approaches because you want quality traffic and you don't just want to be known, worldwide for everything. You want to kind of be known in your space that brings revenue and helps your company grow.
Now, a lot of seven, eight figure CEOs like to uh, convince themselves that, they like working behind the scenes. They don't want to
Mhm.
be, front and center. Many of them try to convince themselves that they don't need to be on social media. They don't need to build a personal brand alongside with their business brand. How do you respond to somebody who comments like that?
And most of the people that do that tend to be humble. I mean, look at my hat. It's like it says "Be humble" at the top. It's a great reminder, and those are the people we want to work with because good leaders are the ones that say that. Think of it as I am a vehicle. My leaders are a vehicle to open up doors to create trust and opportunity and spread that within our organization.
Yeah.
And I gave a speech at the Human Gathering this year, which was it's very nice. It was a great event, and I challenged them and I said, guys, I haven't talked to one person who said this whole time that said one ego comment, one like they were all really nice, kind people, and I go, these are the people I want to challenge you. If I speak here again in the future, I want to challenge you to break down that barrier. It is a humble barrier. It is a thoughtful barrier where you don't want to come off showy, you don't want to brag, you don't want to do that, and say instead, I am a vehicle for the company. And ask the people around you, ask your marketing director, ask these things. How can I help you be better at your job through our brand and my brand? What does it help my actions to do? Because then someone else, your team is telling you, if your customers know all the hard work and hardships you went through to get this, it would change the trust level. If you're doing things for the right reasons, you should feel good about yourself. Somebody might judge you. The type of mindset that you can learn there is saying, hey, if I'm doing it for the right reasons, the right people and the people who matter will know that.
Yeah.
And you'll also be able to help your company out a ton.
So, all right. So this is a good question. If I may, I'm going to put myself on the hot seat here and
Sure.
see what your opinion is. So, this article just came out, and the top 10 innovative CEOs, and I was ranked number three, two behind Sam Altman, the Chat GPT guy. On the surface, it's, oh, that's great, but that only serves his ego.
Mm.
But you and I both know that there's a significant play for the company itself. So the article
Yes.
highlighted me as, one of the top 10 innovative CEOs, but now through your lens at relevance, how does this benefit the company and how would you use that to, for the benefit of all the employees and so forth?
I think one tip is that when you create people around you, and I think that getting other people wins is important too. I think the first thing is have a culture where we're not bragging, but we're proud and we highlight the work that we do, and it motivates us to keep doing that good work. You do really good work, and anybody who knows you do good work. There's nothing wrong with just sending them a message and be like, "Hey, I'm really proud of this. If there's anything you can do to get it out there." I think that's my first tip is like it allows you to have a lot of little amplifiers and trusted people, and then you're reaching more networks. Another one is your wording is that, when people are come off and say it very, oh, I don't want to give an example. I had a friend the other day that just wrote like something that was so fluffy and BS, and it was like, I never thought I would. And it's like he's always talking about stuff that he's doing. Well, he's like, I never thought I'd be in this position, and I'm like, yeah, you do. This is like your 15th award. Shut up. And so I think that
I
I think
think I
that
know what I think I know.
I think that I laugh at those things. With me, also giving other people credit is a huge aspect because in reality, you're who you are because of others. I'm who I am because of others.
Absolutely.
Now, you're a hard worker and you're smart and you listen, but you don't need to brag about that. And so I think that when you give others credit and you recognize and you're grateful for that, I think it comes off so much better.
Well, I think even, like when you look at your bio that you had this Entrepreneur of the Year award and all that other fun stuff, when people want to come work for any one of your God knows how many companies that you have at the moment, you know, when people see who it's being led by, then that also allows you to attract a higher level of talent because A players want to work with A players.
Yep.
And as you have clearly demonstrated yourself as an A player, that's part of the reason why when you look at the people that are working with you, they're A players,
Mhm.
you know,
Yep.
because A players attract A players.
And they stick around. When you look, we have 0% turnover on our leadership team, knock on wood. And so I think that those things can attract people at a level, but then after that, it's building them up and building the people around you. I've been lucky enough to understand this world that we're talking about, where I've been able to put myself in a position where I can build up the others. Hey, by the way, I just want a really, a quick 30 seconds to advertise how amazing my people are, which in reality is like, it still doesn't come off terribly because I'm just proud of them.
I want to honor you for saying that about your people. That's a symbol of an awesome leader. One of the first and best lessons that I learned was in college. One of my assignments was to go interview an entrepreneur and learn about their company. I went to Babson Entrepreneur College, the whole deal. And so I chose my neighbor, Bill Cavallero, and he owns this massive factory that put glue on keyboards, these machines that put glue on keyboards and it just move things super fast. And so I walk in, and it was cool because I walk into his factory, and even though he had all these VIPs come in, on the name on the board was a welcome Charles Cadet, also on that board, which I thought was cool. Made me feel special, right? Like I'm a kid in college, but my name was still on the board. I felt super special. He takes me around his factory and introduces me to every one of his employees. And they all felt great and he had something nice to say about them. When we get to the factory floor, there's a gentleman who is pushing a broom and he stops and he goes, Charlie, I want to introduce you to Tom. And he goes, stop for a minute, Charlie. Look around. I want you to look at this floor. Do you see how perfectly clean this whole floor is? The reality is that we couldn't be anywhere as good as we are today if it wasn't for Tom making sure that this floor was so spotless. He makes us all look good, makes us all more efficient and everything. Tom is very literally the number one, maybe you call him sanitational engineer. I don't know what he called him, you know, in the industry. And we're fortunate to have him. This guy had a smile so big on his face, you wouldn't believe it. And he grabbed this broom with such pride and he's just working away at it. And you could feel how happy and how proud he was in that moment. And I'm like, wow, that's how you build an awesome company. And sure enough, somebody came in, offered him far more money than he thought he was going to get for that company. Now, I know we're pushing against the clock. So, this is a Beyond Seven Figures podcast. What would you say is your biggest, best tip for our listeners who want to go beyond seven figures?
Oh, so I'm to steer away from obvious answers. I think there's a lot. I think that the tip is to, and it maybe ties into top of mind, is that create habits and processes within yourself to engage people in a way that you connect with them on different levels than just transactional. So the example that I gave with you earlier was you sending that message after that event that was like, "Hey, just looking out for you. Here are things that I think that could help you out of that from our conversation." Meant a lot, connected me better to you even more than we were before. And so, it's one of my tips is that add thoughtfulness to a lot of things throughout your year and plan it out. And I think that those things, like, because the idea that when we see each other, we didn't talk for like years, but the idea that when we did talk, there was immediate connection again, that's extremely valuable. And when you do the things that you did after that, and the things that I'm talking about, I think it creates so many more opportunities for you where doors will open, partnerships will exist, referrals will happen more. Honestly, your mental stress will be better because when you have more of an aspect of community that people just actually like, you can have fun with, you're at a stronger mental place that you can perform. So I know that that might be a little of a generic answer, but honestly, it's been the number one thing for me getting the right people, the right clients, and it's truly helped me kind of generate the wealth that we've been blessed with.
That is a phenomenal tip. I love it, man, and it's a really, really good reminder for me as well. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Now, people want to learn more about you and your companies. Where do we send them?
I'm not too hard to find. I'm on LinkedIn and I'll actually respond if somebody reaches out. Relevance.com is kind of one of our core companies. Check that out. Gravy Stack. I'm not actually an employee there, but we love that company because it helps with children's literacy and financial competency. So j@relevance.com or j@calendar.com. And I'll try and respond and I'll do what I can to be helpful.
Awesome, John. Thank you very much. Definitely check them out over at relevance.com and follow them on social. Google John, you'll probably see thousands of articles too, and tap into a little bit of go further on the thought leadership side of things and a little more about the way that John thinks. And he's got that book, Top of Mind, as well. There's the Korean version, but you probably want to read the English version because it could be a little bit easier to translate. But that wraps up today's episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. Remember, for more tips, strategies, and information, also check us out at predictableprofits.com. Again, that's predictableprofits.com. This is Charles Gadet with my friend John Hull, and I will see you in another episode.